Do you have faith in our leaders? Do you have faith in our government? Do you have faith in our doctors? Do you trust the our so-called experts? Do you believe in the official version of 9/11? Do you believe, or do you go to doctors for non-emergencies? Now, these are important questions for us to ask ourselves when we're on the hero's journey. So this video is especially for you guys who've been out there helping me, and God almighty, you guys are unbelievable. I just can't believe the feedback I'm getting from you guys on how hard you're working. And in this video, I want to help you guys try to increase your percentages, because this is really a numbers game. If you understand anything about sales, it's like if you're cold calling, you got to talk to 10 people just to get one appointment, and then you got to have 4 appointments to make one sale. So that's like you got to go through 40 people just to make one sale. So it's good to know that, just to realize, well, it's just a numbers game, and I got to accept hearing a certain amount of no's. Now, I realize a lot of personalities can't accept that. That type of rejection is hard. That's why those who are good salespeople have a real thick skin. The high red type personalities I mentioned before in that test personality. If you want to know more about it, look in my playlist down below, and you'll see I have a whole section on this. But what I want you guys to do is try to figure out ways to increase those percentages. And I've looked at this many ways. I've done a video called it the Raw Vegan Survey, where I grouped people into 17 groups based on these 2 main issues I'm talking about. One has to do with usury. The other has to do with our health. These are 2 of the most important issues we have to understand. One has to do with going upstream. That has to do with our health. The other is usury, and it's one of the most important things we have to do downstream, because that is the absolute tool of control, and health is the ultimate tool of control. So this is the whole message on my YouTube channel. And when we're helping people, and we're looking for people on the hero's journey, remember, we want to gather allies on the hero's journey. We want to gather knowledge and allies on the hero's journey. And when you're trying to find people who might be a candidate for the hero's journey, and everyone is, aren't they? But the ones you want to go after is you ask them one simple question. Do you trust your doctor? Do you go to your doctor for non-emergencies? Well, you know, about 1 out of 3 or so, or more maybe, no, they don't have the answer. And they're going to be receptive to testing an idea as time has come. Now, even if they trust their doctor and they believe they're God, like we've been conditioned to believe, we can still get through to them, but let's try to increase our percentages. Let's work with numbers. In fact, when it comes to certain subjects, one of the first things you can ask them, especially if we're talking about things like usury, is, do you believe in the official version of 9/11? And if they believe in the official version of 9/11, there's no way they're going to be able to wrap their brain around the idea that the official version of last century is wrong, let alone just recent events, relatively speaking. So those are 2 good qualifiers. Do you believe in the official version? Do you trust your doctor for non-emergencies? That's the best place to start right there. Remember, that's the most important thing we have to do, is we've got to go upstream and deal with the ultimate tool of control, because when we realize the role that plays, then the money and all these other issues, the government, those are not issues, because those are symptoms from not having health, from being disconnected. But we have to realize how difficult this message is to get out. We don't have an avenue for the presentation of this information. Even now, as I'm broadcasting on YouTube, from what I understand, they're really changing how many times my other videos show up when you're out watching my videos, where normally they'd be all in your feed list, and now they're not, and they're doing that on purpose. So when you control what people know, you control what people do, and that's the biggest obstacle we're up against. Most people don't know, and then they don't want to know, and if they do want to know, a lot of those are incapable of knowing. And that's what I did a while back when I looked at these 2 very important pieces of the puzzle and grouped people relative to whether or not they know it, and they want to know it, and they're capable of knowing. And I came up with 4 main groups. I've talked about this before, again, Raw Vegan Survey, and a total of 17 groups. And when we look at those 17 groups, 4 of them, which is like 1 out of 4 people, don't want to know. So right off the bat, we know every 4 groups we see, one, just throw them away. We don't want to waste our time with them. Hopefully we can figure that out. And then 1 out of 3, they want to know. 1 out of 3 groups, I should say. Not 1 out of 3 people, 1 out of 3 groups, and that's important. They want to know, but they can't. Cognitive dissonance, unrealistic optimism. They shut their frontal lobe off. They don't want to process that information. They just have a mental processing error. Because it's scary, it's frightful for these people to entertain that idea. So that means right there, 3 out of 5 groups that we're looking at are not good candidates for the hero's journey. Obviously, we don't want to turn anyone away if they're coming after us. But if we're out there trying to grab some heroes, you got to realize only about 2 out of 5 groups are going to be good candidates. Now, it's interesting to note that, again, I'm talking about groups and not people. It's not 1 out of 4 people, it's 1 out of 4 groups. And to put things in perspective, 17 groups, 1 group doesn't want to know, or doesn't know, they don't want to know. Well, that might represent 99% of the population. And then the other 1% are in the other 16 groups, so you can't assume each group is equal. And I wish I had better numbers to know really what the numbers are. But we know we're waking up on so many levels. There's revolutions everywhere you look around. And again, you got to find the revolution that appeals to you. Whether you want to go downstream and help down there's a lot of work we need to do downstream. You know, on the hero's journey, we've already gone upstream. Now we're on the hero's journey. We're sharing that message to get more people to go upstream. Other things we can do as part of a hero is to work with damage downstream. 3 areas were damaged individually: the environment, society. Why isn't there food growing everywhere when we look? When we go out walking, found some mulberries the other day, but I sure don't see anything to chomp on close by right now. So there's a lot of downstream work we need to do there, isn't there? And then society. What is wrong with society? What's the biggest problem we have with society? The individual's damage. That's why the upstream solution is so important. It's why we've got to gain back our senses. As long as we're disconnected, we're going to have all these other subsequent needs like government and money and the media that are going to be used to control us. But in the meantime, we do have to do damage control. And the most important thing we have to do for damage control for society is to understand the concept of usury. And there's a lot of stories related to that. We don't need to involve any of those events to figure things out, but it sure does paint the picture for us that history is going to repeat itself if we don't realize that. But once you understand how usury works, you don't have to take it any further than that. We just need to know that we got to stop it. It's insane that we have someone that will print us our money, and then we owe them money on interest, and it's just insane how this creates this illusion of scarcity. Remember, health, our so-called experts, they don't know. They give the illusion that there is a germ or a virus, a contagion myth, virus myth, and then fall for that vaccine scam. That's just not it at all. And then you've got the other issue. The absolute tool of control. The one that is able to, by creating this illusion of scarcity, they keep us to a point where we can't even have time to develop the ability to reason. That's what it's all based on. It's not how much they have, it's how much we have. They want us to believe in scarcity so that we don't have enough time to figure out what to do so we can change things. So there's 2 main illusions we're faced with. Upstream with the contagion myth, the illusion that there are things outside of us that are the reason that's why we're sick. And then there's that illusion of scarcity where they don't want us to know we live on an abundant planet. If we had our act together, my friends, if we stopped letting someone just print our money, even if we didn't go upstream yet, We wouldn't have to work as hard. Check out the Ubuntu movement if you haven't heard of that before. I know a lot of you all have. It's what they did in Africa before money was around. And if we just cooperate and work on our basic needs, we don't have to work very hard to have a very simple, enjoyable life, a much more enjoyable life than most of us can even comprehend. In fact, that's probably one of the hardest things that's keeping us from actually figuring that out, isn't it? Never seen anything like it. How can you imagine that would be? Or it could be like that. So, 17 groups. 4 don't want to know. 6, they want to know, but they shut off their frontal lobe. 7 out of 17, that's about 2 out of 5 groups. 2 out of every handful of groups you find. That's part of the hero's journey. So get out there, get inquisitive, ask them. Do you trust your doctor? Do you believe the official version of 9/11? And if they don't believe the official version of 9/11, teach them about usury. Help them understand we've got to take back control of the issuance of our money. And if they don't trust their doctors, then let them know that there's a simple thing they can do to really make sense out of all of this. And that's the testing ideas time has come, because once they do that, then they realize that everything that they were told was wrong. You need that brand new reference to figure that out. Because when you take a solid food vacation for the appropriate length of time, most if not all of your illnesses and ill behaviors are going to go away. And that's when you come to that realization that none of these systems out there that claim they can solve our problems are the solution. And that's because the solution lies within each and every one of us. And when we all wake up to that reality, you got it right. We're in for a treat.